Hi, everyone. Miranda Cady with Premier Sotheby's International Realty in sunny Orlando, Florida. I am so excited to be hosting today Heidi Seagren from our Jameson Chicago Sotheby's office. Welcome. How are you doing today, Heidi?
I'm good, Miranda. How are you?
Fantastic. I've got to be honest, I am so honored to have you here today. I did a lot of research coming into this, and you have quite the pedigree in real estate, quite the portfolio. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. It'll be 23 years next month in Evergreen, Colorado, and I sold there for about 15 years. I actually owned a Sotheby's franchise very briefly and sold it, and at a perfect time, got my money out of it and just sold for Sotheby's. It was Fuller Sotheby's at the time. Fell in love with the brand, and I had grown up in the Chicago area, and as a single mom, I thought it would be better for my kids to be back here around family. So 10 years ago, I moved back here, and I reinvented myself, went back to my maiden name of Seagren, and started selling real estate here. And I've been in my hometown of Barrington, but I sell in the Chicago area and the suburbs. So.
You have some beautiful listings all throughout the city, obviously specializing in luxury, as most of us do. So what brought you to this fascination? I know, obviously, growing up in the Chicagoland area, there's a predominant heavy influence from Frank Lloyd Wright, but what stirred your passion for architecture?
Actually, what stirred my passion for architecture is since I was 4 years old, I've loved houses. And I've lived all around the United States. So when I was born in Minneapolis, and our family moved around to Seattle and Sioux City, Iowa, and Memphis when I was 4. And after church, we would do Sunday drives and go look at homes, just drive past these beautiful homes. And all the big ones, I would say, yikes, that's a yikes house. So a big house was a yikes house. And I fell in love with all homes, but especially yikes homes.
Yikes homes.
And I just loved houses since I was 4. So, and now I sell yikes houses. So it's, but I've always loved homes. When I was in 8th grade, I thought I wanted to be an architect. So during school, I would do little, my doodling would be floor plans.
Yeah.
Not well drawn. And I'm certainly not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. So I didn't end up going into that, but I did go into photography and journalism, which gave me a love for telling stories of houses. So.
Heidi, it's so fascinating to me because I've always felt this parallel between you and I when we've had these discussions. And as a native Minnesotan, I grew up around Rochester, south of Minneapolis. And ironically, I know where Sioux City, Iowa is because I also lived very near there, about an hour away for a few years, right? South, kind of in between there and Sioux Falls, South Dakota, middle of nowhere, Iowa.
Right.
So really interesting that, and I remember those drives. My father would take us on Sunday drives, and we'd go through these rolling, sprawling neighborhoods. And your yikes homes, I totally understand. Your heart fills with joy, this passion. There's something really beautiful about a home that's not only well designed, but well cared for. You feel that love, that energy as you drive into a neighborhood. And I couldn't agree with you more. So thank you for taking time out of your day today to talk to us about your experience and your expertise, because a lot of people may or may not know, for those who are new to the Sotheby's brand or don't know you personally, you actually did a panel discussion at GNE. Was it in Las Vegas?
In Las Vegas with Poget from Dallas about mid-century modern homes. We did a breakout session on it, and I wasn't as well versed in mid-century modern as I am now. A lot of my experience had been selling in Colorado, which is a very different style. And I think coming to Chicago has really upped my game for different architectural styles.
Absolutely.
And certainly in Colorado, we didn't have a lot of Georgian or salt box. There are certain types of homes that you see more in the Midwest or New England. And I've always had a fascination with a more contemporary home. And my family built our family home in Barrington Hills in 1977. And it was a very kind of California contemporary vaulted ceilings, a great room before great rooms were popular. and lots of windows and landscape windows that just let the outside in. And it was almost like feeling like you was in a birdhouse, just
Oh,
seeing.
I love that.
And that was started by probably my fascination with a lot of windows and light, natural light. And so when I moved back here and I got to go on some Frank Lloyd Wright tours, because there's a foundation here, I started going to Oak Park, where he really created his art, and doing some tours. And then I've got a friend who's a docent for Frank Lloyd Wright, and I've done some of those tours. So I've done the Roby House, and I've gone up to Wisconsin and gone to
Spring
his
Green.
famous.
And
I have had a real fascination. I also love a ranch home.
Yeah.
And I love an open floor plan. And I think what's been fascinating to me also is how many people kind of tie it all into mid-century modern. It's kind of like anything that has windows and a lower pitched roof seems to be mid-century modern or prairie style or Frank Lloyd Wright like.
There are some significant, differentiations between those architectural styles. And most people don't have the expertise or the insight to know the difference. They just clump it all together. So speak to us a little bit about that. What differentiates a mid-century modern from prairie style, from some of these other architectural styles? Because you really have done a lot of research. I know you have a fully developed PowerPoint, some beautiful books to share with us. I think you and I could probably sit and have coffee and talk about this for at least 3-4 hours if we were in person. I mean, we both just share an intimate passion and value for the subject. But tell us a little bit about, for the novice or the newbie, people who are tuning in who are really like, architecture, cool, I've heard Frank Lloyd Wright once, but they have no idea. Break it down in kind of layman's terms as far as what differentiates mid-century modern, prairie style, and so on.
Well, they all have an emphasis on the outdoors and nature, and they all have an emphasis on the lower, the more minimally pitched roof, kind of being at one with the horizon. And that was the concept. And so mid-century modern, I think, really started coming kind of from Europe, and just minimalist appearance and lines, and not a lot of warmth.
Right.
They were a very sterile feeling, but again, a lot of geometric forms and a lot of straight lines. Not a huge emphasis on a big bridal staircase, more of an emphasis on walking in and seeing the outside when you walk in, or a fireplace as the focal point. And when Frank Lloyd Wright started, his whole concept was building and living in harmony with nature. And that's why that whole concept of prairie style is his accurate description of what he was trying to achieve.
Yeah. Well, he speaks to organic architecture too, and really never building a home on top of the hill, but making the home of the hill. And, you really see that in a lot of his work, the way that he incorporates the outside in and the inside out. There's just this fluid movement, almost as if there are no walls, right? I mean, when you're looking at it from afar, the home is with the hill.
Like falling water.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting. And when you speak to mid-century modern, I tend to think more of like a Joseph Eichler, who obviously has inspiration and similarity to Frank Lloyd Wright, but very different structural components, the lines, everything. So I think it's neat that you can just distinguish distinguish between those two characteristics and those styles. So tell us a little bit more about what fascinates you within this realm.
Well, so I before I was in the real estate business, I was in the hotel business, and I was in Aspen, and I was director of sales and marketing for the Little Nell Hotel in Aspen, and I loved that. I used to say I put heads in beds. That was my sales job. But I also, and people there kept telling me I should sell houses, and I was like, no. Then I just buy a lift ticket and health insurance, and I ended up doing okay buying both. But we had a property called the Aspen Institute, which was a very minimalistic architectural style. It was all Bauhaus architecture. And so I kind of started seeing those lines, and then coming back here, Mies van der Rohe and Frank Lloyd Wright kind of get grouped into contemporary, but they are very, very different. I think that the Mies van der Rohe and Bauhaus, they're German. They're more of an industrialist look, and not as many natural materials. So you see glass and you see metals, and with Frank Lloyd Wright, he really wanted to incorporate natural stone, earth tones, brick, and he was really particular about the kind of brick, the color of brick he used. I think one of the other things that I noticed in his homes, or there are homes out here, especially in Barrington and a lot of the suburbs around Chicago, where some of his proteges designed homes. But you go in and it's a lower roof line when you walk in, and then it graduates into walking into the home, as opposed to some big high ceilinged foyer. The approach is shorter and then higher, kind of like you had me at hello when you get in there.
I love that.
It's not the front door itself. And the other contemporary properties don't really have that. I mean, I'm 5'1", so when people go, does it have high ceilings? I'm like, everything has high ceilings to me. But in a Frank Lloyd Wright home or some of his proteges, you actually, the ceilings are lower, and then you walk in and they're higher, and there's a focal point of the view or the fireplace in the center. And I think Frank Lloyd Wright's properties tended to be much more of an open floor plan before open floor plans were in. But I think that his work evolved too. I mean, if you've gone through some of his, I don't know if you've seen any of his properties in California, they really took on a different look. One of the things is a little thing that fascinated me when I took his tour of his studio in Oak Park, was that his son actually developed Lincoln Logs.
Oh, fun. I didn't know that.
I know. Which makes sense.
It totally makes sense. What child? That used to be my favorite toy growing up. I was like, move over, boys. Give those to me. I know. They're very creative. Wow.
And so when you go through his home and studio, there are some of the Lincoln Logs in there. And I remember Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys.
Yeah.
It's just, building things out of basically wood.
The best toys ever.
Yeah. And so it was funny when I found that out. I'm like, he continued to carry on that. He perpetuated creative design. I think one of the things that really stands out to me that a lot of people don't appreciate until they're in the home is just that feeling of bringing nature in.
Yes.
And I had a home that I sold a couple of years ago where the builder, the owner, had passed away, but his parents had worked for Frank Lloyd Wright. His mom had been a seamstress and done his upholstery, and his father had built furniture. And so this particular property, had a lot of those design, it had a lot of those aspects in the home. And people would walk, and it needed remodeling. I mean, it was like me, it was pretty mid-century in its age, but it was, I could see what I loved about it, because you just felt nature in everywhere. It took us a long time to sell it, because a lot of people don't want to, they would go in and see, landscape windows that were from early 70s, or these were from the 50s. And those are special sized windows. They're expensive to replace.
Sitting behind me actually is one of my newest listings, and you'll see the windows. I mean, they're 20 feet tall. They're beautiful panes of glass, and it's really about opening up to the outside. But it takes a certain kind of stewardship to understand the value and appreciate the history behind a home. And transitioning that, because obviously we're not going to sell this beautiful residence with a history. It's actually the Stark home. So Dwayne Stark and Neil Schweitzer studied under Frank Lloyd Wright here in the Florida market.
Wow.
And did some predominant architecture throughout Central Florida, Winter Park. Dwayne Stark actually designed our Orlando Public Library and our Orlando International Airport in that style, right? That prairie style, lots of concrete, clean lines, beautiful, beautiful work. But this was his personal home. So the sense of it's just because it sits on 4 acres in a desirable, area of very close to downtown Orlando on the little Econo-Lockahatchee River does not mean that we want to see someone bulldoze it and, you know, do something different with the property. Like, it's very much about finding the person who values what's here and doesn't mind investing the time or resources to keep to the original integrity of what's represented. So I get it.
Agreed. And even the windows behind you, you know, they're a wood frame. They're not, especially in an environment that has a lot of moisture or heat and cold, you know, like Chicago has both. Those are harder to maintain. And when you replace a landscape window, you often have to replace the entire frame of it too. And that's expensive.
Yeah.
Not like a, you know, aluminum clad window or anything like that. And you can't paint the trim.
Right. I was talking with Katie Nepshield there in Pittsburgh, and she actually is just north of Falling Water. And she was talking about the upkeep and the maintenance of a home having a waterfall running through it. Like, obviously the intention was for the design and the lifestyle, but there is a significant amount of upkeep and preservation that needs to take place with a property like this. So it's so refreshing to me to see that you understand and value that, and that your sellers were willing to wait for the right buyer, because I think that's really the integrity that we owe this legacy, right? I mean, as realtors, as sellers, you know, there's something we're protecting here, a sense of heritage. And I think that's so valuable.
And the passion, I can see your passion. Excuse me, my allergies are horrendous today. Okay. This particular home, and I studied photography with Ansel Adams, so I have a real appreciation for the photography. I don't do my own photography, but I'm very picky about the photographers I use. I'm there on every photo shoot. You know,
the angles are so important.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this particular home, it got picked up by Dwell magazine.
Ooh.
And they shared it. And they called me and they said, "Can we share it?" I'm like, "Sure, that'd be great." That is what ultimately sold the home. It was two gentlemen out of California, the San Francisco area, that loved mid-century modern, loved Frank Lloyd Wright, and bought it. And they're actually going to have their wedding there.
Oh,
I've become very good friends with them. They're really having fun with remodeling it.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing matters when you have that kind of passion about a home, and you're able to tell the story of it.
Yes.
You know, do you ever use those books that Sotheby's has with the little
storybooks? I love those.
I love those.
Oh my God.
I bring those along in a listing, especially a home that somebody has loved, not a trash home. But what's your favorite window? And they just kind of go, oh, and they know immediately. And then you know that it's a match. You know you're going to get hired because you're like, oh, I see that's why that's that window. And then I have them fill that story out, that paperwork out. I leave it in the home, but I incorporate a lot of the words they use in the verbiage I read about the property.
It's so essential too, because when someone lives in a property and they experience it for, you know, sometimes generations, this property, do you know, are you familiar with Bess Dixon out of our Dallas office? She's with Sotheby's Briggs Freeman. Beautiful, beautiful woman, great heart and soul. This was actually her childhood home. So, you know, no. So when you talk about not only—
How did you find that out?
It's an incoming referral. So she, for my passion for architecture, and knew that her parents deserved a good fit in a realtor who really valued what the home has to offer. So I'm giving it my best. And that's part of the reason, you know, we talk about getting in front of Dwell. We talk about getting in these markets because, you know, in Chicago, in Pittsburgh, in LA, you know, those, Scottsdale, Arizona, those are the markets that really value this type of architecture. And someone would more often than not pick it up as a second or third home while they're vacationing here in the Florida area. Right. You know, and that's really practical. So it's about giving the home, the property, the value it deserves, and finding the people in the places that will value it most and cherish it most. And so, you know, not only do I just love learning more about this topic because it's my heart and my soul, but also, you know, that's our duty to our colleagues and our customers. And I think it's so awesome that you represent that in your market and are so dedicated to that path. I'm inspired by you, Heidi. Like, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I know you have a pretty detailed PowerPoint presentation specifically about this architectural style, and I want to make sure that
I'm trying to pull it up on here.
And it's okay. If you can't, we can always host it in the separate session or something of that nature, you know, I'm happy. I would love to have you on more than once. I would love to kind of touch.
I was just thinking, so I actually was thinking of starting a blog called Mid-Century Modern Me, because I was born then in the 60s. But I do love that. And I think it'd be fun to share, you know, what, and there are people that are absolutely architectural aficionados that have to have a mid-century modern they really, I mean, it sounds like a buzzword, but they really, they know what they want. You want to help me just pull up the screen? My daughter's going to help me pull this up. Okay. So we're going to go.
Yeah. I mean, people do really know what they love and what they're passionate about. And it's one of my goals to have a property of my own in every major city so that when I'm, you know, doing business trips, I don't have to be in a hotel. I can be in a place where I'm comfortable and rent it out when I'm gone. And I know a lot of our colleagues and customers actually do similarly. I have a lot of clientele who own properties in multiple cities, and it's not uncommon. Now, Chicago and New York and LA tend to be big feeder markets for Orlando. We have a lot of customers coming in buying investment properties, obviously close to the Disney corridor and the theme parks, but also, here we go.
So go ahead, keep talking. We don't have, and then how do I go?
I think, you know, I'm no Karen Stone when it comes to this, but I see your PowerPoint. So it's all yours. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
I'll just go through it quickly. But I did, and I'll send this to you so you've got this information, this PowerPoint. But what I did was, this is a house that I listed, obviously in the winter. This is the back of the home, and it wasn't a very, it wasn't super pretty from the front. It was mostly a front load garage and a kind of a hidden little front door. But it has this gorgeous courtyard that is the center of it. And you can tell by the lines, this is a little bit later than, this was early 70s, but it was a commercial architect who had done a lot of commercial mid-century modern. And this is his personal home. But it sold within 24 hours.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Look at that line.
First buyer. I'd said no showings till Saturday. Somebody kept calling me, can we see it? Can we see it? I'm like, not till Saturday. Well, I had 5 people that wanted to see it on Saturday, so I showed it to somebody on Friday night, and he wrote it off for full price cash.
Wow. And you sold it in winter? I'm impressed. Like, I'm looking at snow. That's incredible.
I know. So that was kind of fun. This is kind of just, and I won't read all of this, but there's really a difference and a beauty to how this has all evolved.
I think the nice thing is anyone watching who wants to read in depth on the slides can pause the video. We welcome you to pause, and you can go ahead and read through. It's very interesting, all the detail and thought put behind these designs. You've done a great job capturing these slides. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you. I had some help. So this is the, so I've got some of the pictures
I've seen this property in Oak Park. It is gorgeous.
Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, that arch. It captures my soul.
And the colors too. I mean, it's very, it blends in with nature. So I didn't realize Frank Lloyd Wright had built so many properties, but over 1,000.
Yeah. Wow.
And there is a big push here. There are certain properties in the Chicago area that people get together and say, let's save this structure.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people don't want to put the money into it, but they love it. And I think there's been this huge movement to save the architecture and to preserve really what is such an American style that has been replicated or tried to be replicated, you know, around the world. Absolutely. But it originated here in Chicago, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
For me.
I can't get to the next picture. I'm like, oh yeah. You can leave it here all day. Look at, oh my gosh. So speak about this, the Moore House specifically.
I don't know a lot about every property he's done, but I like watching the evolution and the windows, the style of the pitch of the roof. So this was before he went into the lower roof lines that blended into nature more. He also, he was 23 when he started doing this, and then he evolved into that prairie style, which really became the one that was more of a ranch home with the the
Oh,
slatted roofs. River Forest is next to Oak Park. I don't know if you've been out here, but you've got to come.
My sister's actually in Naperville. I spent a lot of time in Chicagoland.
Okay.
A lot of time. I love
So
Chicago.
when you're here, you'll have to come here and we'll go do these.
I would
really
love
fun
that.
to do it together. But the whole concept of being a part of nature, we talked already about falling water. And that's it.
Oh, falling water is heavenly. And I think what most people don't know, I'm going to pause on this picture for a second too, Heidi, if you can wait here for a minute.
Sure.
You know, Frank Lloyd Wright had a pretty tumultuous life, went through some struggles and some hardships, in addition to just being world renowned for his cutting edge architecture. So, you know, coming out of some of his original designs when he started there in Oak Park, he kind of up and left to Europe with a lover, left his family behind and started a new life. And when he built Taliesin there up in Spring Green, Wisconsin, in the valley that he grew up in, it was really to start a new life with this new love. And he started a fresh page there and kind of a new identity, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. And shortly thereafter, there was some tragedy and trauma with the house help, and there was arson, and he had lost his wife and children and had to start fresh. And kind of, I mean, it would be just common sense that anyone would go through a deep depression, but for a time being, he was very much considered a has-been and a was-been, like very much out of sync and out of the main scene. And so when this home was contracted, it was after he had done some small commission work in LA and kind of had a little bit of a resurgence, but then went back to restarting Taliesin, rebuilt the property, and brought in a bunch of basically what you would consider now to be protege or interns onto the property to help him maintain and fix it due to a time of economic strife for himself, where he needed the physical labor and assistance. And he taught these young men and some women, I believe, his skill sets. Now, this home was actually commissioned by one of his students' fathers. So, and apparently he was supposed to have been working on the commission for quite some time for Falling Water and kind of backburnered it. And the gentleman showed up at his doorstep and he's like, "Hi, how's it going?" And he drafted or drew this up in something like, don't quote me on this, but something like 20 hours from nothing to Falling Water, which I think could arguably be one of his most brilliant accomplishments.
Yep.
So it's astounding that, and I think what I want people to get from that is no matter where you're at in life, no matter what path you're on, where your journey is, there's still so much of your story to tell, and your best
and reinvent yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know if you've ever read the book Loving Frank. I know it's historical fiction, but that was also something I think our book club read that about when it first came out. And that when I first moved back to Chicago, that was one of the first things I did was drive up to Taliesin.
Oh, love.
Just to get that feel. So we talked already about Mies van der Rohe and other kind of mid-century modern design. This is one of the one I don't know. I just love this because it's so different than typically. And growing up in Minnesota, one of the other places we would go look at yikes houses was driving around like Lake Hennepin and Calhoun on Sunday afternoons, where you would see these grand homes, but you wouldn't see a lot of this type of architecture. Yeah, it was more of a traditional and pitched roof. And this is the house that I sold that had got him to dwell. And you can see it actually didn't have a garage. It had a porte cochere, but it had so we're looking out the front door towards what is the porte cochere, the entrance. And it is that the roof that gradually gets taller as you walk in. But it was really, I loved it. And it was that Chinese red door, that brilliant red door, really popped. Yep. Yeah. So we've already talked a lot about the mid-century modern concept. This one's in Milwaukee. I've not seen this one.
Fun. I have not seen that one either.
So he actually started selling the plans for some of his properties too. And that was, this is one, this is interesting. So there was a time where, this is mid-century modern. So you had the roofs that, originally very almost like Gothic European, very steep pitched roof. And then Frank Lloyd Wright kind of came in and kind of flattened it a little bit. This is not his work, but at some point, mid-century modern became almost the opposite, and inverted. Not real efficient here in where it snows.
Yeah, not practical for snowfall at all.
Right. And then this is the Roby House. This is, I don't know if have you toured that one?
No, I've heard about the Roby House. I haven't been there in person yet.
You've got to get there. They just did a big renovation on it, but it's in Hyde Park. And I just couldn't wait till you come here. We're gonna have so much fun.
We're gonna have a great time.
I know. But this one, it's beautiful, and you learn so much about why he designed things the way he did, and the whole concept of having nature be one with the home. It's just, and it's now part of the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust.
Oh,
so this is not a home somebody lives in.
Beautiful.
Anyway, this is a more of a concept of mid-century modern. This is here in Barrington. It's not a super pretty home, but the concept of the mid-century modern versus Frank Lloyd Wright. So here's Frank Lloyd Wright. Here's more mid-century modern.
Yeah.
So you still have some of the minimal lines. This one I've not been in, but I absolutely love the red trim around the windows, and they've even got the red chairs in there.
Red chairs, that little color pop.
Yeah, the red sconce, of course, the red geraniums. But I love that it's minimalist, but it's beautiful. I mean, you incorporate some of that color. I'd love to go into that, but that's from 1910, and it's so contemporary looking now.
Yeah, even still,
over 100 years later.
I think let's switch out of the slideshow real quick and go back to the conversation, because this is inspiring to me.
I'll get out.
Oh, you're fine. I think
did I get out?
Not sharing, maybe. I don't know. There we go. You did it. See? Ta-da!
I'll send you this. It was really, I had a lot of fun.
I love it. And I'll try to see if I can upload a PDF or a link so that people can explore it a little bit deeper. But what I love about that, you explained that this home was built in 1910, and it feels contemporary today.
Very much so.
I think that's so brilliant. I was watching an interview that Frank Lloyd Wright did with NBC in 1953. So he was in his mid to late 70s, I believe. And he was speaking to the fact that, it's, if an architect isn't thinking 10 years in the future, and they're not a poet capturing the narrative of their time, he was very much adamant that you have to be so far focused in the future, but also so grounded in today to really understand the culture and the narrative of what's happening in society and how to channel that into your designs. And I just think that's a phenomenal perspective. Obviously, he was a Unitarian, believing that all things kind of work together, right? That God in and of itself is in all things, and it should all be in perfect balance and this organic symbiotism, which you see in his work. But it's so interesting that he could develop something that even today in 2020 looks modern, it's
relevant. It's very relevant.
Yeah. And that's such a rare skill set and trait, to be able to develop something so timeless that it transcends, generations, decades. I really have an appreciation for that. And the fact that wherever he went, he really inspired people. He inspired them to live their best lives within their homes and their neighborhoods and their communities. All of these other architects who, I think he would have been offended by the imposterism, and he states that.
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, what bigger honor to see so many people, Joseph Eichler, Ed Dart, Neil Schweitzer, all of these architects were inspired by his creativity, and maybe they didn't have the skill set to go off on their own, but they also changed the world in their own way, making it more beautiful. And I'm so honored that the depth and breadth of your knowledge, Heidi, and we definitely have to get together and have coffee in Chicago. I usually come up beginning of summer and end of summer, so I'll let you know my schedule.
Please do.
Yeah, if you're in Orlando, come see.
No, I would love to come down there too. I think one of the things that that I love about this concept that you have to do this Zoom video is that now more than ever, our homes are not just a reflection of us. They're our safe haven. They're our hiding place, where we are expressing ourselves, where we're allowing our emotions to really, there's a lot of emotions right now. And interestingly enough, I'm getting a lot of calls right now. I've done this 23 years. I've been through several, I've been through a lot of markets like this. This is a new normal. We don't even know what it is yet. But I'm getting calls from agents. Barrington is about 40 miles northwest.
Yeah.
City, and I'm getting a lot of calls from agents in the city wanting to rent a home here for the next 4 months.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
People don't want to stay there. So we've had this big push for people to be walkability and be able to walk everywhere and live in the city. And I am suddenly seeing this big push for people to leave the city and come out to the suburbs and want a little more space, because their home is their haven.
Yeah.
And the concept of having nature be at one with you and your home, I just think it's so relevant. And of course, Frank Lloyd Wright would never have even known any of this would happen. But the fact that his homes are relevant today before this pandemic is amazing in and of itself. Yeah. But you look at it now, and the fact that right behind you, these windows and bringing nature in,
right.
What a way to feel refreshed when you are literally in lockdown in a home.
Yeah, yeah. Our view and what we have access to within our four walls and on our property is very inspiring and captivating. People want a type of lifestyle that they can live 24/7. You had brought up the magazine Dwell. They're great publication, but really it is about dwelling in our space right now. We're utilizing our home and the functionality of it in ways we've never thought we would have to, right? Like who thought we would be in our properties 24/7 round the clock for months? We're finding out things about our homes that we didn't even know. We didn't even know, whether it's, little upkeep and maintenance issues that we didn't realize we had. I think we're going to see a huge trend towards upsizing and downsizing, as well as moving into metro areas and out of metro areas as people realize what they want in life. I was talking to a good friend of ours and colleague, Karen Stone, out of New York. Love her to death. She's a very highly motivated individual, but she's like, I'm questioning New York. Is this where I want to be? Is this where I'm going to stay? Is this the life? Like, why here? Why now? And she's this young, vibrant, fresh woman. You would think she would stay in New York City forever, right? And, it's just, she's searching different markets, and you're seeing this, what type of lifestyle embodies who I am and where I want to be with my life. What city captures the goals that I have for myself and can help me facilitate that? And then within our home, do we want more space where we're not butting next to neighbors? Do I really want to know my neighbor's daily routine for 3 months? Maybe
or be in an elevator with them, right?
Yeah, exactly. and we're socializing in ways now where we never have. Maybe we want that Norman Rockwell neighborhood where we get to wave to the neighbor on the lake from 10 feet apart, right? So it's people really identifying right now, having the time to identify what their best life looks like. How do I articulate that on paper? Like, what is my dream home? What is my ideal home? And people are really ready to, make the sacrifices towards accomplishing those goals. If not out of necessity, to channel resources into a personal business, or, a lot of people, I think I saw a statistic recently. I'm going to have to find it rather than quoting it, but there's an increased percentage of people that have more equity in their homes now than ever. So it's
true.
Yeah.
I've seen that. Yes.
they were talking about an economic downshift and downturn, and how this, comparative to other markets, we actually have more security because of the equity that people have established within their homes is actually record breaking compared to other market downturns. So, you know, there will be people releasing some of those resources and repurposing that equity into their small businesses, so on and so forth. So I'm not concerned about real estate as a whole. I'm actually inspired and encouraged, because
I am too.
where there's stress, there's opportunity. And most of what I'm hearing is all beneficial. I'm grateful and thankful my friends and family are safe. They have food on the table. Most all of them still have jobs or have the capacity to get another one. So, you know, maybe I'm in this little bubble. But for anyone out there who needs the assistance of a realtor, go ahead and reach out to your local expert. I mean, no matter what city you're in, around the country, around the world, we're happy to help you find and transition into your best life, whether it's here in Orlando, over in Chicago, New York,
Colorado.
Colorado. Yeah, we have connections all over the world, especially here with Sotheby's. That's our niche market. That's what we do, is connect you to the best of the best in any market. And Heidi, I can honestly say that you are that and more. I can't wait to come share time with you in Chicago.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is going to insert one thing. I do a couple full-page ads in local publications. I still believe in print media,
yes,
especially with good photography. And my latest ad, my tagline has been "Leading You Home." Heidi Seagren, Seagren Fine Homes, Leading You Home. But my tagline I started adding in the last month is "Let me help you right size." Because, you know, we talk about downsize, we talk about upsize, we talk about biggie size, we talk about all of this. Really, it's a fluid, it's fluidity, you know, people will get into a bigger home, a smaller home. A lot of people right now want to have their parents move in with them, not go to a nursing home. I mean, and so they're looking for places that have several master suites. Mm-hmm. So I think the concept of Sotheby's agents are established, they're experienced, they're refined, and they're also people. They're human beings who are in the trenches with everyone, helping you right size. But the concept of being able to refer each other business or around the world, you know, it's just that we can help you right size anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh, I love that, right sizing. I'm gonna quote you on that. I love that term.
That's fine.
So on point. Well, thank you again for your time. I'd love to follow up a few months from now and just see how you're doing, check in.
Great.
And definitely come visit you next time I'm up in Chicago. I'll let you know.
Perfect. That sounds good. Thank you so much for putting this together. It's fun talking.
Have a great day, Heidi.
All right. Bye.
Bye.